What's up, everyone? Welcome to season 4 of My Boulevard podcast. This season, we're doing something special. I am here with my co-host, Missy. Say what's up to the people, Missy.
Hello, I'm so excited to join you, Dhati. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to talk about the who, what, when, where, how, and why of urban missions.
That's right. This season, we are going to be walking through together, like live, real conversations. We're going to be talking about real questions, really practical wisdom about how to do ministry in urban environments.
Yeah, this is going to be a primer for all of us. So let's join this journey. Let's grow, learn, and push forward urban missions together.
Stay tuned. This season, we're going to talk about how you can do ministry where you live, where you work, and where you worship. So let's go.
Let's go.
What's up? Welcome. This is My Boulevard Missionary Podcast. We're excited about our guest today, but my name is Dhati Lewis.
I'm Missy Branch.
And we are excited. You know, this over the course of this season, we've been talking about this concept of the stops of an urban missionary, and now we've kind of shifted and talking about, like, you know, as we are making these stops, this kind of the urban terrain, all the varieties of different things, and specifically we have different types of missionaries. You know, we have pastors, we have poets, we have practitioners, we have polymaths, and you know, and for me, I'm always thinking about the pastor, but you know, we are so much more than just that.
Of course,
but but sometimes we can just kind of focus primarily in on the work of a pastor.
All lives matter.
Okay? All lives matter. All lives matter. So, you know, and so sometimes we gotta bring in some people who are doing it. And you know, one of the things, and Missy, you probably don't know this, but there are certain people who have had like significant impacts in my life, and this man is one of them.
Okay.
You know, when I came to Atlanta, you know, I didn't know a soul and didn't have anybody that I knew. And he actually was started a church a few years before mine.
Okay.
That we started here in Atlanta. So he is the guy who kind of convinced me to become an SBC. So that's for better and for worse.
Amen.
You know, all the beauty of that. So I'll give Larry all of that.
Listen,
credit.
You're here.
I am here.
Come a long way.
And we are
still SBC. Yes.
We are still
Look
like
at the Lord.
Boulevard is not SBC, but you know,
Blueprint. Yes. Look at the Lord.
SBC. So I mean, you know, but all the things. But while he was planting a church, he was planting a church in a Regal theater, right? And and so that is kind of what we're going to be kind of talking about today, more than just about Regal, but talking about location.
It's so important.
Which is significant in the urban environment.
Yes.
Right? It's significant when we're talking about it. And so let's get into it. So Larry, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. It's good to see you. Good to see you, Missy. Yeah, life is good. Staying busy.
Yeah.
I love it.
And you know, and I didn't mention in the front, but also about Larry. Larry was actually one of the original founders of Rebuild. You
really?
know, when we first started,
okay.
Myself, Larry, and a couple of other people, like D.A. Horton and some other people, and we were going around doing trainings and things of that nature.
Okay, Larry, you're the OG.
He's the OG. Weaved into the story in so many different ways that we could get into. But right now, Larry, what are you doing now in this season? I know you're recently married. You know, you can talk a little bit about that. But what are you doing also ministry-wise?
So ministry-wise, I am still a theater church consultant for Regal. So I basically work with half of our theaters across the country, about 400 theaters. And right now we've got probably 50 or so churches that meet in our theaters every Sunday morning. And then I do some speaking, I preach, I write for several churches, I do some sermon-based devotionals, and then learning how to be a good husband. So
I love that.
Life.
Awesome.
Like all the pieces, God's let me have a little part of all the pieces, but it is good, man. Dhati, you've been a friend for a long time, and you know, we make jokes about SBC, but I know God has used you strategically in my life and in a lot of other people's lives. So anytime you call, man, I'm here.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the journey, and I'm grateful that you're the one that taught me, hey, we can do better together than apart. And you know, and that was one of the things and one of the reasons why I still remain in SBC. And so I'm very excited about it, man. But today we're going to be talking about locations. You know, you talk about kind of Regal, and there's a few things. I have a few directions I would love to talk to you about. One is being just the importance of choosing locations. And and you've done that. You've been a pastor, a church planter, and one of the first things that as pastors and planters we were thinking about early on is where are we gonna gather?
Where are we
How are we
going
gonna
together?
meet? And so
once we get past my living room, where are we going?
Once we get past my living room, yes. Where are we going? Where are we?
And even before that, I'll tell you, in my journey of being a church planner, one of my mentors said to me early on, he said, Larry, ask God to give you a burden for a place. He said, because strategy without a God-given burden is just ambition. And as it relates to location and where you are, like there's a lot of great, the demographics work at this place or this place or this place. But the first question really is, has God called me to this city? Has God called me to this neighborhood? So like location from where God is calling you, number one, but then number two, there's some practical pieces to that as well. But if God gives you a burden to a place, then you got to believe he's going to provide some gatekeepers to make it possible for you to plant in that place.
Yeah, I love that.
Awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, so having that burden, and a lot of times the way we talk about it is like how to develop a vision from burden, right? Where we recognize and that the city's story and that location, I think is a huge, huge aspect of that. And so as a person has developed that burden and they begin to think about locations, like what is typically the areas or the types of places that you would say people typically plant in?
Most planners, there's three places that kind of have become like almost an industry standard. If you're starting a church and you're portable up front, it's typically either a school and more often a high school because they're more regional versus like an elementary school is pretty much limited to a neighborhood. High schools have more awareness. More people know where you are just to begin with. So schools would be probably one of those, and movie theaters, like I'm involved with. And then number three, storefronts. And then we kind of throw in a number four caveat sometimes when you're doing a relaunch or a rebirth of an old church. But those are the three primary spaces that church planners are looking at today.
Yeah, and I think that's good. So after they get out our living room,
after we get out the living room,
right? And you're doing a house church strategy, and that's a that is a viable motto of house churches.
Well, let me ask you this: if I am a church planter, I have been a part of a church plant, and I'm going into a community, how do I know who to contact? Like, how do I know if I'm just doing this? Like, I look at this movie theater and I'm like, I wonder if they let me do it. Do I just walk up to the teenager at the popcorn stand, or you know what I'm saying? Or do I talk to the principal at the high school?
Right.
Like, how do I know who to talk to?
Right. It depends on which theater chain. If you're talking about movie theaters, it depends on which theater chain you're talking to. So for Regal, we've got a team of people. We're really the only circuit right now that has a theater church team where you have kind of a dedicated consultant to walk with you.
That's
Our
awesome.
quote unquote competitors, their events team typically handles churches, and there's some good people at some of the major chains as well. But typically in most neighborhoods, you got to go to the theater. For Regal, you go to our website. There's a link at the bottom where you click on literally theater church. But yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
as someone who has been and then started in the church, so you're not just talking about this because when you planted the church, you were at a theater, you were at, so let's talk about that. I know your church consultant for Regal now, but just talk about what are some of the benefits around choosing that option. We don't have to speak about the other two options, but like let's talk a little bit about choosing the theater as an option. What are the pros and the of that?
Right, for sure. And I think number one, it is the demographics. My boulevard, as you guys focus on, the urban context and the density that comes, or the diversity that comes with density. We don't put movie theaters in any place that's not dense. Like we got to have a lot of people to support film, and so it's already in a dense area. It's so funny. I kind of use the Walmart rule when people are talking about the kind of neighborhoods they want to reach. Sorry. I'm like walk into the Walmart and look around, and that's your target. And I would say the same about a Regal theater.
Awesome.
You walk in that Regal theater. So when we planted in Midtown Atlanta, Atlantic Station where we planted, it was already dense and diverse. I wasn't trying necessarily to lead a conversation. I was trying to help the church catch up to a conversation that the rest of the community was already having, right? And so Regal, as far as, is it a place that people feel comfortable already? Yes, it is. Typically, is it a place that's, man, it's nice and the appearance is nice, the bathrooms are nice, people feel comfortable there. We got big seats and that whole deal. So it's already someplace that if you're trying to reach the unreached and the lost and the unchurched, they're already going to the theater. Now the church is just saying, hey, we're going to meet you where you are. So that's one of the things.
Mm.
We got the giant screen. Mac Batterson in DC really kind of popularized theater church. I think their church website is still theaterchurch.com. And it was Batterson's idea. He was the first one to introduce it to me. And he believed because of what theaters represented in a city, it's where you exchange ideas, kind of like the Areopagus and Acts, that every theater in the city should have a church in it because of what theaters represent to a city. So Regal, we make it easier because we do have the consultants, but the reality is we got plenty of seats, even room size. We talked a little bit about this. You walk into a room that holds 5,000 people, and there's 1,000 in there. It feels like, man, something's missing. Where's the energy?
Mhm.
You walk into a room that holds 100, there's 95. You're like, man, something's happening here. And so one of
Feels
the things
good.
Regal
Yeah.
offers is you can move into different size auditoriums as you grow, just from a practical standpoint.
I live in the Raleigh area, and there is a church that I know of that is meeting in a theater, and you can't beat the comfort of the seats. Everybody knows where to go to the bathroom. There's a built-in space for the service to happen, like a stage. It was a great experience.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah, and I was gonna
actually
ask that,
got a
like,
couple churches. So real quick, let me talk about that Raleigh for a minute. We've got a couple churches in the Raleigh area. One is a newer plant and this would be the types of churches that meet with us, right? So one is a new plant in the Crossroads area. They're using 2 auditoriums, one for adults, one for kids. And then over in the Garner area, we've got a multi-site
Yes.
church that's using 7 auditoriums. And so they've pulled in their Spanish-speaking campus as well as their English-speaking campus. And so they've got one Spanish speaking worship, one English speaking worship, and then 5 auditoriums for kids ministry. So it's actually pretty cool. It's a great place to go see what it looks like.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, I think I love that. And that's what I was going to be kind of asking is like, what is, because as you think about spaces, right, as a church planner and think about like all of those things like children and all the variety of different things, it's a very unique space that churches are looking for and that are needing. And you just kind of spoke to that, but what is something that you hear as a surprise to church planters or pastors when they go into theaters that they were like, oh, I didn't know that it was this benefit. I mean, because you have to set up and tear down that you don't have to do, some that you probably don't have to deal with a school auditorium,
Right.
or
a storefront, or something like
that you have to set up and tear down.
Right. In a weird practical way, one of the questions you ask when you're looking for spaces is how sustainable is this space? How long can we actually meet here? So if you're in a school, they could say, and you're in the auditorium, hey, we've got a school musical or play that we're going to do for the month of November, and you got to find someplace else to meet. Or if the school board changes its position on its relationship with churches, they could kick you out. Whereas like with Regal, we do 1-year contracts, but the reality is the church that I started met in the theater for 13 years. Our average church stay is 2.5 years. So even just the fact that, oh, wait, we can stay here, people already know where it is. Not only can we stay here,
Awesome.
we're welcome here. So part of church planning is who are the gatekeepers? Who are the people of peace? And the reality I would say to a church planner, even as you look for spaces, how can we be a blessing to the people that we're renting from? How can we be a blessing to our community by being here? So for Regal, honestly, it's a win-win. Like we're not necessarily like a faith-based or faith-led driven corporation like some other places like a Hobby Lobby or Chick-fil-A. The reality is it's time we're not showing film. So by church being there, you're blessing us just by bringing revenue, and we get to bless you by giving you
Right.
some place to meet, but it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So whatever space you go into, you ought to be asking the question, what can we do to make this a better place for our community and show that we love this city? We're not just using this city or using this space.
I love that.
Wow.
And as a trusted partner, if you are planting anywhere in North America, right, or in America specifically, find out if there is a Regal in your place. And if you are looking for a location as a trusted partner, we would love to connect you
Yes.
to Larry, to his team, to helping to make that transition easy for you. So I want all of our missionaries to hear that and to know that even if you're not a current missionary, please come be a missionary, come to join us with what we're doing. But we want to know that Regal is one of our trusted partners, and sort of think through kind of what does that look like for us to be present.
So to switch gears, I do have a question. Being a part of a church plant, our church did not meet in a theater. The Lord did open doors for a building. But having gone to a lot of different church plants and experiencing the environments that they set up, what impact does the room you're in and the way it looks, the way it feels, what impact does it actually have on the user experience? You know what I mean? Like the people walking in and should I stay or should I go?
Right. That, I think number one, this is not theater necessarily connected, but it's like, do I see people like me? Does it look like I belong here? Do I,
Yes.
just optically, but then
Yes.
more importantly, do people make me feel welcome is where it starts, really, which starts in the parking lot experience. But then when you actually walk into the room, room size matters, excellence matters. Is it old or run down? Like if I'm bringing my kids, so I feel like my kids, number one, are safe. Do I feel like the environment is clean? But then as far as even more of a bigger experience, one of the things about the theaters, I tell people use the screen and fill up the screen. Like they're used to coming in there and watching the movie. And the reality is, people are like, can you worship in a movie theater? Well, movies make you cry. They make you laugh. They make
Yes.
you feel romantic feelings. Like we do all the things. Can you worship? Yeah. And I would run video content, whether it's bumpers or short little sermon setups every week. And I would tell my people, man, run it hot, almost like you're in a theater, let people feel it and use that tool
Yes.
in the theater. Since you're already in the theater, we tell stories on the screen. Let's tell stories about God on the screen. This is crazy, but when Hitler was trying to create his message in Germany, they did it through film. Like that's how they spread the ideology. Like, why not redeem the screen in America for the gospel? And like we run videos. So anyway, it matters. It's not the most important thing, but it is a thing. Like the gospel and the power of the gospel and the power of the word and people living out loving God and loving people. That's what matters most. But the reality is we want to remove anything that gets in the way of that. So if there's a dirty floor, we need to put carpets down so we feel like our kids are clean,
Safe.
or we create secure areas. Nobody comes past this point unless you're a parent with a badge. So people feel like their kids are safe. Like those things aren't the most important things, but they're huge.
Yeah,
that's really good advice.
That's good. We got a couple more minutes. Give me one for people who are considering that. Give us the price range of a theater. Like what is generally the cost for something, and then just kind of like give us just another reason why. Give us your final pitch on why theaters can be a hospitable space for your church to host your community.
That's right.
Right. And the price range varies, honestly. And part of it is the busier we are with film, the more expensive it's going to be. We got theaters in the Manhattan area that are open 24 hours a day, and it's tough to for real. Like, we're charging $15-20 a ticket and 100 seats. Think about this, 100 seats at $15. That's $1,500 that we may lose if we put a church there. So a church rate starts between $600 and $750 a week, depending on where you are, just to give you a ballpark. That's where we start. And so it's a lot less than we would make at film, but we don't show film typically on a Sunday morning. So anyway, you're looking to start around $600 to $700 a week, depending on where you are. And if you add a party room or you add additional auditoriums, as far as like the final pitch, Jesus came to seek and save the lost. And in my opinion, as the city goes, so goes the world. And if we're going to reach the world, in my opinion, I feel like we got to start with the city. And our theaters are in cities. They're where people are. There's lost people who need the gospel, and the theater may be one of those places where you can reach them. I will say this: the more rural or suburban you are, the more it's a strategy decision. Hey, here's something that nobody else is doing, and it's trendy and it's cool or whatever else. The more urban and dense you are, it's a good financial decision. Where are you going to park 100 cars? Where are you going to buy an acre or 20 acres of land? Like, it's a good financial decision. But church has been meeting in theaters for years. You think about Manhattan and Brooklyn Tab and Times Square Church. They just bought old theaters and started churches there because it makes sense practically. But man, I want to be where people are, and people are in theaters. So let's bring the gospel to theaters.
Amen.
Awesome.
Amen. I love it. I appreciate it. Thank you, Larry. This has been informative. And again, one of our goals, if you're listening, is that in collaboration with the trusted partner Regal, we're going to be doing a PDF that's talking about locations and capturing a lot of what we talked about, and that we will make that available for you on the website as we are thinking about location. And so, Larry, appreciate you, man. Thank you.
I appreciate you. I love you, man. I love My Boulevard and what you're doing. Thanks for letting me be a part, for sure.
So grateful.
Until next time, this is My Boulevard.